So, obviously one may watch you, and Billy, when I watch you, I'm like, this guy is boom. Okay. Your level of certainty in you, you're very confident in the answers you're given, right? And, there are certain people that can communicate that way, that they have the level of confidence. And then one can go do the research and due diligence and say, well, he's full of it, or he's right. Well, I had no clue. He's right about all this other stuff. But there's generally two schools of thought, okay? One is people who believe the establishment is hiding information from them. Mm-hmm. They believe the establishment doesn't want them to know everything because they think it's not good for them, okay? God forbid if you average human beings, you can't handle this kind of information because you're not at the level of intellectual, knowledge that we have, okay? There's a big community. You can call them anti-establishment. You can call them folks that are curious. You can call them, whatever you want to call them. Then the other side is folks who are part of the $200,000 to $300,000 community. Mm-hmm. They went to the right schools. They paid for a certificate. They follow the rules, and they go to school. And to them, they're the people they look up to are professors with fancy degrees. And if they can't figure this out, who are you?
Right.
Because I asked a couple people about you, and I'm like, listen, this guy, the way he talks, it's very crystal. Yeah. Background. I think you took you went to Harvard for a specific course, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. He did something with MIT.
Yeah.
What background do you have for one to say, no, man, this guy's got a lot of credibility to speak on these topics? What would you say to that?
My biggest background is my passport stamps. That's number one. I mean, traveling around the world, dozens of times to visit with ancient indigenous wisdom keepers, homegrown archaeologists, homegrown guides, going out in the field. It's videos of me at all these ancient sites, me, myself, which is very rare, on my own funding, my own money, no loans, no backers, no sponsors, spending and risking it all to get out there and find out for myself in person, do my own research and put together the pieces of the puzzle. The second thing, obviously just for, I'm an author, and I've authored now 4 books. Epic of Humanity became #1 in encyclopedias at one point on Amazon. And also #1 in Mesopotamian history, #1 in Assyrian history. So there's some credibility. #1 in ancient history at one point. I don't know what it is now, but I bet it's still in the top 10 in all 3 of those categories. So somebody thinks I'm an expert out there. As far as MIT, I took classes to get certified in applied neuroscience, which I did. And then I took classes at Harvard to get a certificate in ancient civilizations. But I put the work in, I put the time in. And like I said, my biggest credibility is my passport. A lot of people talk a lot of stuff, but they don't have any passport stamps.
So passport stamps, meaning you went there, you saw it, you witnessed it, and that is where. Okay, so when you're reading material on this, what is your method of research? What are you reading? What are some things you attack to research a topic like this? Specifically, how wide of a range of topics you study?
Right. Well, if I'm going to go into an ancient civilization, specifically trying to tie things in through the Sumerian culture, because the Sumerian culture has a lot of information and data. Sumerians and also the Egyptians, the pre-dynastic Egyptians, but also the dynastic Egyptians have a lot of information. But when you get into the Sumerian cuneiform tablets and the Sumerian cylinder scrolls, you get access to a lot of information. So I go to the UCLA CDLI online cuneiform digital library. Okay, so say that fast 10 times. So you go in there, you can take actual stones off the virtual shelf, drop them into the translator, and you can then read the translations for yourself. You don't got to rely on this guy, that guy, and all these other people that translated the tablets. You can get the translations yourself, and then you can begin to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, what's interesting is these stone tablets have been translated, and if some of them have been created in Assyrian, some have been created in Babylonian. You can see over different periods of time, but you can see the similarities between the two stories. And then you can also then make the connection between those Assyrian and Babylonian texts with biblical text, also with the Torah, right? The Old Testament of the Bible, the Quran. So all of a sudden you're seeing that the Quran, the Bible were written much newer, at a much newer time period than these ancient tablets. Why are they saying the same identical things as the ancient tablets? That's the first big question mark you have to ask yourself. So now you have to go back and back convert these languages, Aramaic, Hebrew, and everything else, and you got to begin to look at the origin of these sources for these books, and you realize 90% of it's coming out of ancient tablets that existed for thousands of years, well documented. No need to look that up or Google it because it's an absolute known fact. These tablets are thousands of years old, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 years old, and they're sitting in the British Museum. But like, for example, the Epic of Gilgamesh is giving you the full story of Noah's Ark. And you're even given the shape of the ship he built, not the ship dimensions in the Bible. The original dimensions of the boat is a circle, right? It's a disc that he built, not a gigantic boat. The story in the Bible is a little off, but the generalization of the story is coming directly from these ancient tablets. And that's just one example of dozens. And you begin to say, oh man, what happened was people were copying from tablets onto parchment papers, right? Copying and turning it into what we call scriptures, putting it in these vases inside of these caves where they were studying stuff and trying to hand it down from generation to generation. Over time, people came into these caves, found all these different vases in different areas throughout the region, put those things together and made it into canonized books that we call religious texts.
So what do you think about the Bible?
Well, the Bible has a lot of good information in it. If you can apply some of the information, it can really change your life. It can really put you on the right path. But it also has some information in it that's detrimental to people as well. You have to have discernment with what you're reading in the book, in the Bible. In the Bible, where you see the word God everywhere, that's a mistranslation by accident on purpose. The original word is gods with an S. It's always with an S. When you back engineer the actual word, the translations, you find out it's gods, not God singular. Elohim is also a plural term. It's not a singular term. And you also discover that Yahweh is actually Enlil from the Sumerian cuneiform pantheon, from the Sumerian cuneiform text. He's Enlil. It becomes Yahweh in the biblical text. And there's all these correlations between the different ancient characters from the Sumerian text end up in the biblical text. And you find out in the book of Deuteronomy that these gods are fighting each other over resources and people. So if you read, anyone who reads the book of Deuteronomy begins to realize this probably isn't the creator of the universe that wrote this. When God tells people, God is supposed to be all-knowing, all-loving, ain't he the same all the time? Then all of a sudden, you read in the book of Deuteronomy and he's saying, there's one person in this city that doesn't like me. I want you guys to go over there. Now, keep in mind, they've never met these people. Kill the women, kill the children, kill their animals, and bring the spoils of war back to me. Now, what kind of God needs the spoils of war, and what kind of God needs to kill children? There's also a verse in there in the book of Deuteronomy where God tells a man, if you see a woman walking through the land and you decide to rape her, and the word rape is the actual word, look it up, you can. And if after you rape her, if you decide you want to make her your wife, you can keep her as your wife too. Now you have rape and abduction. Now, you're saying to yourself, the creator of the universe, okay, has all power, all-knowing, omnipotent, omniscient. Why in the world would he write stuff like that or give a man the ability to write stuff like that to put in his book? In some cases, it's not talking about the creator of the universe. We have to be able to discern that. We have to be able to have the eye to see that some of this is manipulation for the power of people to put on top of other people. In the New Testament, Jesus says, honor your slave master. Now, why would we want to honor a slave master? As you would honor me, he says. Do you think Jesus really would say something like that? I don't. I think that his message was pure and clean and clear, that he was trying to usher back a level of Christ consciousness back in humanity. And that's the return. The second return is when we all reach a level of Christ consciousness. That's when Jesus comes back. He comes back in our minds, not in a physical form. And for people to take his words and skewer it around to make it okay for slavery, I think that's a big thing where we see now the injection of human minds, not the creator of the universe. So you have to be discerning with the biblical text.
Who is Jesus to you? In your eyes, who is Jesus?
His name is Yeshua, okay? Jesus is, first the J is a recent letter. The J is not that old. So it really was originally Isus. And that name, Isus, means hail Zeus, okay? So you're calling on Zeus when you say Jesus, one of the Sumerian people who converted over to the Greek gods. But his name is Yeshua. And so Yeshua to me, very powerful person, very spiritual, high level of knowledge, a student of the Egyptian mysteries. When Jesus disappears from the Bible, he actually ends up in Egypt, okay? You can find this information in a book that was kept out of the biblical text called the Gospel of the Holy 12. And in the Gospel of the Holy 12, he shows up in Egypt, and we know that's a fact because I take people on tour every year to Egypt, and I take them to the house that Jesus lived in. It's a crypt. It's actually worship. People come there to see that bed that he laid in every single year. When I take people there, we take them straight there. And we know the path that he traveled throughout Egypt because it's a huge sign outside that Coptic church where he lived that shows where he went. Now, when he was in Egypt, what did he go there for? To learn the Egyptian mysteries. Who taught the Egyptian mysteries? Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, the person I wrote this book about. And so Thoth was the teacher of the Egyptian mysteries, or the ancient mysteries of what it was called. And then he leaves there and he goes to Tibet to learn Qigong and Reiki healing, which was confirmed by the Dalai Lama. And then he heads down into India to learn the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back. Then the Bible picks him up at the age of 32. I call my son out of Egypt. He shows up on the back of a donkey, proclaims himself to be the Messiah. So it's a big story. I think that he had a big message. I don't think people were able to grasp it at the time. But his message was that not that he was coming back, but that the Christ would return, the Christ consciousness.
Where did you get this information? What book did you read that said this? Because this isn't, you didn't come up with this. You read this from somewhere. What did you read that told you this?
The Gospel of the Holy 12.
The star system. You talked about Jesus, where he went from like 12 to like 32.
Yeah.
Can you explain Jesus' trajectory from 12 to 32 that we don't have in the Bible?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So Jesus disappears from the Bible at the age of 12, right? He disappears, and where does he go? There's another text called the Gospel of the Holy 12. And in the Gospel of the Holy 12, which was omitted from the Bible, he goes to Egypt with his mother. Now, I've been there, and when I take my tour, when I take people on tour, I take them to the place where he slept. It's still there. It's a crypt now. It's like a place to go there. You know where it's at, right?
It's inside a church, right?
Coptic Cairo, correct. Right inside that church. They converted it into a church. And he went there to study the Egyptian mysteries. He went there also to learn all about the ancient mystery schools. And then he left there and he went to Tibet to learn the mystic art. Tibet, he went to go learn, not mystic arts, but went to go learn spirituality.
He went to Tibet?
And mystic arts, yes, mystic arts. And then he went down into India, learned about reincarnation and all of that. And then he came back down and he reappears in the biblical text when God says in the Bible, I called my son out of Egypt.
What an episode for Akash to miss. I mean, we don't tell him any of this. By the way. The ego that he will have finding out that Jesus learned everything from India. Yeah. Oh, we can't tell him. Okay, keep going. Okay,
so he learned Reiki healing in Tibet and energy healing with his hands. The mystic arts, I have to correct myself. The mystic arts he learned in India.
Got it.
And then coming back down, teaching reincarnation all the way back.
And how do we know that he went out there to India?
Well, the records have been kept. It's complete records. And even the Dalai Lama confirmed that he was in Tibet at one time.
Really?
Yeah.
How do they keep reincarnation out of the Bible?
Well, the Bible is about reincarnation, but they doctored it up to make you think that it's not about reincarnation. But when you even look into the book of Revelations, it says you're going to get a new name and a new body. It didn't say you was going to be a spirit with energy. It said you're going to get a new name and a new body, a physical body, and that you're going to live inside of that body. And so you're going to come back and be born again, And the biblical text where people are getting confused about this born again, like in the spirit thing, it's really born again in consciousness. Getting dipped into a bucket of water and all of that's a waste of time. Somebody dumping you in a pool and all that, you just get wet. Dumping babies and splashing the babies. It's a waste of money, a waste of time.
So what you're saying is that's just a metaphor for this conscious rebirth to happen.
Conscious rebirth, which we can do. We can have a rebirth right now. Right now, if we decide to look at ourselves and think about things that we were doing wrong, maybe in our lives right now, things that could be better with ourselves, and we begin to work on ourselves, and we go back and have a meeting again in 2 weeks and say, what have we individually worked on within ourselves to become a better person?
That's spiritual rebirth.
That is rebirth. We had just now been born again in the spirit. And you can be born again many times in one lifetime.
Christ, who is Jesus?
His name is Yeshua, okay? Jesus is, first the J is a recent letter. The J is not that old. So it really was originally Isus. And that name, Isus, means Hail Zeus, okay? So you're calling on Zeus when you say Jesus, one of the Sumerian people who converted over to the Greek gods. But his name is Yeshua, and so Yeshua to me, very powerful person, very spiritual, high level of knowledge, a student of the Egyptian mysteries. When Jesus disappears from the Bible, he actually ends up in Egypt, okay? You can find this information in a book that was kept out of the biblical text called the Gospel of the Holy 12. And in the Gospel of the Holy 12, he shows up in Egypt, and we know that's a fact because I take people on tour every year to Egypt, and I take them to the house that Jesus lived in. It's a crypt. It's actually worship. People come there to see that bed that he laid in every single year. When I take people there, we take them straight there. And we know the path that he traveled throughout Egypt because it's a huge sign outside that Coptic church where he lived that shows where he went. Now, when he was in Egypt, what did he go there for? To learn the Egyptian mysteries. Who taught the Egyptian mysteries? Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, the person I wrote this book about. And so Thoth was the teacher of the Egyptian mysteries, or the ancient mysteries, of what it was called. And then he leaves there and he goes to Tibet to learn Qigong and Reiki healing, which was confirmed by the Dalai Lama. And then he heads down into India to learn the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back. Then the Bible picks him up at the age of 32. I call my son out of Egypt. He shows up on the back of a donkey, proclaims himself to be the Messiah. So it's a big story. I think that he had a big message. I don't think people were able to grasp it at the time. But his message was that not that he was coming back, but that the Christ would return, the Christ consciousness.
Where did you get this info? What book did you read that said this? Because this isn't, you didn't come up with this. You read this from somewhere. What did you read that told you this?
The Gospel of the Holy 12.
The Gospel of the Holy 12.
Another apocrypha text that was, kept out of the canonized Bible.
Got it. And that's what you learned from this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, there's a lot of people that, smart people, mathematicians, a lot of skeptics that are out there as well. How many people agree with what you have to say? How many people agree with this?
Well, I got 8 million people following my accounts across all platforms. I don't know.
So I'm not talking about that part. Of course, when you're talking with this level of firmness, there's a lot of, that's why I'm curious. I'm curious to know, how you come up with your beliefs.
Yeah.
But why is it, if that's what you believe in, more people don't believe in that? Why do you think such a small sect?
When you're born, you're given a name, a race, and a religion,
right.
And you spend the rest of your life defending a false identity. You don't know who you are. I don't know who I am. You were given your name. I was given my name. Who's Billy Carson? I didn't come up with that name. Somebody gave me that name. And then somebody said, get on your knees and pray before you go to bed. Say the Lord's Prayer before you go to bed. And so I got on my knees and I said the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, But then when you trace back that Lord's Prayer, whose prayer is that? That's the prayer of Ptah. Who's Ptah? Ea Enki from the Sumerian tablets. He wrote that prayer in ancient cuneiform, which then made it all the way into the Bible. And you think you're praying to God, you're saying the prayer of Ptah. So we've been brainwashed. We've been programmed because for generations, we keep getting handed down this system where we're given this false creation of who we are, and we believe it wholeheartedly. We'll fight for it to the absolute death. People will die over those things that were given to them, not that they came up with on their own initially or originally. And so it's a dangerous thing because we have a lot of people walking around that just took the programming code, and they don't even understand really who they are, what they're all about. That's why so many people don't walk in their passion. So many people don't even know what their passion is because they've been given and told what their passion is going to be, and they have no clue how to find out who they really truly are or what they would love to be involved in or what their passion truly is. So we have a lot of NPCs walking around, non-players out here just walking around, have no clue, just programs in the matrix. But then you have a few of us that have discovered who we are, that are working on trying to go to inner space instead of outer space, dig deep within ourselves, learn how to walk in our power, find out what our passion is, maximize that, and access that power and spread that power throughout the world.
Would you say your parents were Christians?
They were quasi-Christians. So they didn't go to church, but my dad would make me do book reports on the Bible from the time I was a little kid. My mother would make me say the prayers, So that in that way, they were Christians.
When did you stop?
I stopped probably, I say, maybe around 12 or 13. I realized something was too much. There was too much contradiction in the text. Because remember, I'm doing book reports on the biblical text. And when I got to the point where God said, I create the good and I create the evil, do what I say at the Lord. That's in Isaiah. Then I realized something was really off here because I realized through my studies that God had killed over 3 million people in the Bible, and the Satan didn't kill anybody. So I said, wait a minute, something's a little off here. He's killing everybody, and Satan didn't kill anybody. And so we have to really take a look. And the deeper I dug into Deuteronomy, then I realized there's something wrong. What it was at that moment, I couldn't figure out, but I just knew something was a little off. I dabbled in it again later on to see maybe if there was something that I missed. And again, later on in my life, in my late 20s, I said, just doesn't make any sense. There's too many question marks. And every time you ask a question, they say, don't question God. Don't question the Lord. Blind faith. And I'm thinking, if I'm going to put all of my eternity into one book, if I'm saying this one book is going to lead me to eternity, and I don't know everything about it, every aspect about it, I can't question it, I can't dig deeper to get more knowledge out of it, then I think there's something wrong with that. I think there's something being hidden from me. And I'd rather be able to dig deeper, get more knowledge, get more understanding, versus people shunning me away from trying to dig deeper to get more answers. And I think that's a big problem. And I think the people that are shunning away and stopping you from getting those answers don't have the answers themselves.
When you went through this journey that you're going through, are your parents seeing you go through the self-actualization where you're having your own philosophies? Are they watching you, witnessing you going through this?
Oh, yeah.
So how old were you when they're watching this?
Pretty much from 7 all the way up. I mean, they gradually saw me changing. When I was 7 years old, I realized one thing. This is what's changed my whole life. My friends kept going to the ice cream truck. They had money every day, even though we were in the ghetto, poor, broke. We had nothing. We were getting money donated to us from local church and other people in the neighborhood. And we were taking showers outside in the backyard because we didn't have water on. We'd plug the hose into our neighbor's house. And I'm saying, how in the hell can they afford the ice cream truck every single day? So I go outside and I say to myself, there's got to be something I can do. I said, I'm going to go inside and get all my toys. I put all my toys in an old Winn-Dixie milk crate, and I went door to door. I violated my mom's rules about leaving the circumference of the house.
Yeah.
And I went door to door around the whole block. I squared the block and asked for donations in exchange for my toys. And so I sold all my toys that day, and I ended up with like $13 and change. And I went to the ice cream truck, and I got my bazooka bubble gum with my comic strip inside of it, and I realized something. I said, wow, I'm going to save myself. There's nobody coming to save me. I am my own savior. And that changed my life forever. And that same
7
day,
years old?
7 years old. My mom saw me standing in the picture window of the house we were renting, and I had a couple of dollars in my hand. She said, what's wrong, son? I said, I don't belong here. I'm getting out.
I don't belong, meaning in the community, in the ghetto that you're talking about?
Right.
Who hurt you at that age?
Nobody hurt me. It was tough moving there because coming from New York to Miami, my accent was a New York accent. Their accent was a Southern drawl. I didn't understand what they were saying. They couldn't understand what I was saying, so they thought I was being quote unquote bougie. Had to fight a lot. And initially, then I started making friends later, but I had to prove myself that I could fight.
Right.
It was just rough, man. Growing up, eating toast and Cairo syrup, that was like a good lunch, begging neighbors for food, stealing fruits from trees in the neighborhood to have food in your stomach. It was rough, man. Holes in my shoes. We put cardboard inside the shoes to keep our feet from touching the street. It was pretty tough. I had 2 pairs of pants. I would bleach them, and then I would dye them with the rich dye, because that way I wouldn't get picked on in school for not having any pants. So I would change the colors every few days to make it look like I had a lot of pants. And in my shirt, I had one LaCroix Sportif alligator. I would unstitch it and restitch it over the Bobo shirts just to make it look like I had some kind of style to keep the people from picking on me. But it got me through to school,
Your parents, do you have any resentment towards them?
Not really. Looking back now, I realize they did the best that they could do. My father was a drug addict and alcoholic, but understanding now mental health, I understand that he was severely depressed. His father walked out when he was a little kid, said he was going to get a pack of cigarettes, never came back. And his mom died when he was only 16, and that just took him over the edge. So his whole thing was trying to cover and mask his pain. I get it now. I'm older now. I can see what the cause of his illness was, and it was an illness. And my mom, she went through some things in her own household that I found out just maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, with one of the people in my family, one of the men in my family, raping a lot of women in my family on her side. So she went through a lot of mental trauma. So you had 2 people that dealing with severe trauma that were in a relationship together and just trying to hold on to whatever they can. And their only ability to generate money was, hustling something here and there, or selling newspapers, or just, delivering newspapers at night, or cleaning bathrooms at like the Shula Resort, which I used to have to go to in the middle of the night sometime and help them clean.
Is your dad still around?
He's gone.
Neither one of them are around.
Yeah.
How old were you when they passed away?
My dad died 5 years ago. So he, unfortunately, he was at Melbourne, Palm Bay, Florida, at an outdoor concert amphitheater, and somebody called 911 and said that this guy was harassing people in the front row. A drunk guy was harassing people in the front row, a vagrant. But he was just invited there. He was literally invited by a person in the band. Somebody wanted to get the front seat. Somehow I found out they couldn't get the front row, and the cops came and beat him and broke his back and gave him a double concussion. So subsequently, he died from his injuries later on.
Pretty quickly, or?
No, he suffered for about a year.
Okay, got it. So 6 years ago is when that happened. 5 years ago when he passed away. How about your mom?
My mom died she died in 2011.
Got it. So about 13 years ago when she passed away.
She died from Lou Gehrig's disease.
Would you say you had a good relationship with your mom at the end?
Yeah, at the end, I wouldn't say at the end a great relationship in terms of seeing her all the time, because she lived up in Melbourne and I lived down in Fort Lauderdale area. I would see her as much as I possibly could, but I got to see her before, when she was getting really sick. I got to see her, and talk to her. Am
I off base to say that you didn't have the most loving relationship with your parents, where, parents, we love them, but sometimes some people don't like them and they don't want to be around them? Were they two of your favorite people to be around, or not necessarily? You kind of wanted to stand on your own ground and do your own thing?
It wasn't, well, my father was, you got to get away because, this guy was, I loved him to death, man, but boy, he was a trip. But my mom, she, I just couldn't understand. She did the best, I can see now she did the best she could, but I couldn't be around her too much because if he's around, it's going to be a problem.
They were still together till the end?
All the way to the end. Even though he would leave for 3-4 months and come back, he'd be sleeping in the streets. He'd be like a bum that had a house. It was pretty incredible. And the house that we lived in, that we finally got out of the ghetto, I'm the one who got them that house. I entered a HUD drawing at the local library. I filled all my dad's information on HUD documents when I was in the 7th grade, walking home from school. And we won the $30,000 from HUD to put down on the house. Is how we got from the ghetto into Miami, New Orleans area.
Interesting. And your best friend, if you were to say 3 best friends of yours, how long have you had the relationship with them?
Oh, I've got some friends all the way from, we moved around a lot, but by the time we got to Miami, New Orleans, I got friends from Miami, New Orleans from 7th grade till today.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So let me go back to something you said. You said, when I read the Bible, Deuteronomy, you went to multiple different books in the Bible, right? And you said, what I'm noticing here is, God killed 3 million, but the devil, I don't hear anything about the devil. What did you mean by that?
Well, what I'm saying is, you have to understand that a lot of the orders for death, including Sodom and Gomorrah, are being created or being ordered by God himself, if it is even a him. I don't believe it's a gender at all. But this is why I'm saying these people, the person that's being considered to be God in the Bible, I don't think is an actual creator of the universe. I think we're mistaking the creator of the universe for a person, for people, different people that exist within that text that have been masquerading as gods, according to the ancient tablets. They came here, they engaged mankind. If you read the book of Enoch, you discover like the angel Azazel comes down, right? He comes from the sky down to earth. The first thing he teaches us is how to make weapons. Let me show you how to smelt this steel and make this sword that can cut through anything. Let me show you how to make a breastplate. Let me show you how to make a shield so that you can repel a blade and all these kind of things. And then he even goes out and helps humans kill people. So these are not what they call quote unquote angels. In my opinion, these are what people call aliens or advanced. I call them advanced beings because we look a lot like them and they look a lot like us. There is some distinction. They were distinguishable from humans, but they look just like humans in the biblical text. In the Bible, in some texts, they call them the Anak, A-N-A-K, the Anunnaki, the Anak. They say we were grasshoppers in their eyesight. They were big people. And these people came from heaven to earth. And in the Natiru, in ancient Egypt, they say the Natiru came down from heaven to earth and turned mud into a kingdom. In the Aboriginal culture, the Aboriginal elder, I've been on walkabouts in the outback. The Aboriginal elders, verbal handed down history for thousands of years. We were seated on this planet by the Pleiadians. They brought us here. We were the first people here. You go to the Hopi tribe, the Lakota tribe. Our star brothers seated us on this planet. I mean, we keep slapping our ancient ancestors in the face, doubting their wisdom and doubting their understanding of what really happened. and doubting their drawings that they left behind and their texts that they left behind by coming up with their own modern day mainstream idea of what we think happened when they left the proof and the evidence right for us.
So in your eyes, you think Jesus was an alien?
I think Jesus was half human, half alien, and I'll tell you why. When you look at the Apocrypha text, you discover, first of all, in the regular Bible, you discover he's born of a virgin birth, right? But then in the Apocrypha text, you discover that his grandmother was also born of a virgin birth. So it seems like this establishment of a bloodline there specifically. When you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you discover that he talks about he developed the ability to incarnate at will on and in any plane that he desires. That's pretty powerful stuff. He's saying he can come back however he wants and when he wants and in any dimension that he wants. He even talks about having rejuvenation chambers, which is what I believe the Serapeum is located in Saqqara in Egypt, is one of his rejuvenation chambers, where they would actually create bodies and put bodies in these gigantic megaton stone boxes made of granite and diorite, which are still radioactive, by the way. You can take your Geiger counter, they're still radioactive. They have an energy source coming out of them. And then he said that I would transfer my consciousness from one body to the next. He would leave another body in there rejuvenating for 100 years, then he'd come back and get it, and he'd do that over and over again. And by that method, he lived through eons. Pretty interesting. So I think maybe they decided to come back through a womb.
Got it. What's your level of certainty on that?
My level of certainty?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, man. I feel pretty confident in it. You know, and the reason why is because I've just done the work. I've read so much information and I've been able to put together so many dots. And I think that the average person is saying, wow, sounds outrageous because this is what I was taught in school. And all they have is the level of what their parents told them and what the school told them. And the school, we know, robs your identity and it robs your creativity and it robs your consciousness. It puts you into a prison mindset. You just become an NPC. And what your parents are giving you is handed down, stuff from generations ago that a lot of the times really is just, old tradition that really has nothing to do with real science, real knowledge, real investigation. My research and investigation is second to none. I'll stand by my research and investigation against anyone because, like I said, I've gone out there. I put the time and I put the effort in. Am I 100% correct on everything? Probably not, because nobody is. We're human beings. But at the same time, my work is pretty strong. My ability to put together circumstantial evidence is very strong. And in America, if you have enough circumstantial evidence, you can convict somebody of a crime. Take that same mindset and put it out into the field of archaeology, ancient civilizations, quantum physics, science, and anything else. You could begin to build circumstantial evidence. And if you could put enough things together that begin to make sense, people just can't see them because they're so spread out. A lot of the stuff I research is on different timelines. So you might take something from 6,000 BC and find something in 1100 AD that connect together. But because people only specialize in 6,000 BC, they never get to 1100 AD. That's another specialist. So I'm a person that collects all the data.
Who have you debated?
Whoever did debate.
Have you ever had like a public debate with anybody? Like it's on YouTube, we can see, or no?
Haven't had a public debate. There's only one person that wanted to debate me, but he only wanted to debate me so that he can clout chase. This guy wanted to clout chase me. He's trying to come up.
Is he a big name or no?
Well, he's not a big name. He's trying to become big, but I looked him up first. I researched him before I disagreed to do it and found out that he had did some things like, he had a sexual abuse on a 19-year-old minor. And I'm like, why would I make a guy like this famous?
Who is this guy? Is it another YouTuber or?
Yeah, I won't give his name because,
okay.
Yeah.
Is he the one that, I think I may know who you're talking. Does he have a YouTube channel with like 3 million subscribers or something, or no?
Oh, no. He's on like 100-something thousand.
Okay, I got you. Okay. All right, I'm sure if he sees this, he'll know who it is and he'll react to it. But you're open to debating anybody?
I'm open, yeah.
Okay, so if we set up anything with anyone else that's maybe expert in the area of topic that you're okay with a panel like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the devil. Who is the devil in your eyes? Is he also an alien, or is it not a real person, not a real spirit? Who is the devil?
Let me tell you what happened. So you go again into the ancient tablets, you discover that, and Yahweh, who's in the Bible, is known as God, right? Yahweh is known in the ancient text as Satan, the Lord of Eden, E-D-I-N. The land between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers is where they had the Eden, E-D-I-N. And when he has his outdoor laboratories, what I like to call it, where they discovered that mating these people together would work if they had enough genetic diversity. So what happens is his brother, Enki, who's now known as Satan, he comes in and he starts talking to the people there. And he starts telling them, it wasn't just Adam and Eve he was talking to. There were other people there. And he was telling them how powerful they really were, and that the mysteries of the universe was inside of their body, and that they had the ability to ascend even to a higher level than even them. And so these people then realized that they weren't animals. They clothed themselves. And by the time this Yahweh character, also known as Enlil, comes back, Satan, he realizes what's happened, that his brother has given them the apple. What's the apple? Knowledge. And so he gets pissed off, and he curses his brother, and he tells them, never listen to him again. He's evil. He's the devil. He wants to hurt you. That's where this whole devil thing pops up from. It comes from the Sumerian tablets, okay? That's where it comes from. It comes from the Sumerian tablets. Enki and Enlil, two brothers fighting each other because one brother didn't like what the other brother was doing to people.
So what is your interpretation of people who go and, go to conferences and they look up to the devil and evil and, there's a religion, right? What is the church called? Satanists. What do you think about them?
I don't like it. I mean, and it's all about frequencies. Yeah, and people say, well, you don't believe in God. You're atheist. No, I'm not an atheist. I believe there's a God. I believe there's a God. I talk about it in my book, Fractal Holographic Universe, because the evidence, the circumstantial evidence of a creator is all around us, even inside this microphone.
Who do you think it is?
It's not a who, it's a frequency. I believe that God is a frequency. We have to tune into that frequency. We understand a couple things through metaphysics. There's a universal consciousness, and there's only one consciousness. You and I appear to be separate and divided apart, but we're not. We're still only one. Ancient Mayan saying, "In lakek alakin," I am just another you. And so there's a radio station broadcasting out frequencies from the universal mind, and it's broken up into point number. I'm 99.1, you're 99.2, he's 99.3. Your avatar body is designed to encapsulate a point number of that frequency for a temporal amount of time. You're able to encapsulate that frequency of consciousness. So, but it's all coming from one source. It's a frequency. God is a frequency.
Interesting you say that. So I got Nikola Tesla once said the following. He said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah.
What do you think he meant by this?
Oh, man, that's powerful. Powerful statement. It's one of the brightest minds in the universe. What he's saying is that when you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, you're now tapping into the essence of the nature of reality. That this reality that we're living in is an illusion. We have the illusion of solidity. Everything is really a frequency. Everything is made of light, and light is also a frequency, right? So this microphone in front of me looks like a solid object. As a matter of fact, it looks like I'm actually touching it, but I never actually touched this mic. What happens is this mic is made up of a wave of potentials. They're in superposition of each other, okay? And when I look down at this mic, my consciousness collapses those waves into the illusion of solidity. It's light waves slowed down. My brain has a capability, and your brain has a capability of creating a collapsing frequency wave that collapses this into what appears to be a solid object. When I touch it, I don't even touch it. You never touch anything. The electromagnetic frequency of the electrons orbiting the atoms in your fingers are repelling the electrons orbiting the atoms in the microphone, okay? So you don't even touch anything. That's electromagnetic repulsion.
So the craziest version of this story is that they genetically engineered us out of lower primates and put us here to mine gold.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then established different types of civilizations and taught us how to build things, taught us all these different things. And enough time has passed that we've kind of forgotten. Mm-hmm. Enough time has passed. That's the wackiest version of it, right?
Right. That's the bare bones minimum.
Yeah, the wackiest versions that they made us, mm-hmm. which is we've talked about this a couple of times, but how bizarre it is that human beings have this incredible fascination for gold. Mm-hmm. We're fascinated with gold. Yeah. This fascination with gold is really weird. Mm-hmm. Like, why back when it was basically useless? You couldn't make a knife out of it. Right. You couldn't, it didn't make sense that this would be so valuable. Just because it's rare, you're barely alive.
Right.
We're going, right? We're going back to full-on hunter and gatherer, our ancestors with spears and stone-chipped, and then after that, gold emerges. Mm-hmm. And it stays. Yeah. It stays forever. Yeah. Now, when you read Zecharia Sitchin's book, he talks about this in the 1970s. His description of it was that they needed to suspend gold particles in the atmosphere because their atmosphere was being destroyed.
Right.
Then you move to like somewhere around the 2000s when climate scientists start proposing this idea of suspending reflective particles in the atmosphere.
Right.
And then when you realize the unique properties of gold, how unusual it is in terms of like a building material, you can coat things. The reason why things are like coated in gold, silver plated, gold plated rather, you can take a tiny piece of gold and cover an enormous area with it. It's a strange metal.
Yeah.
Like really weird. And what, the supposed story is, it's very common on Earth, very rare on Nibiru.
Right. Yeah, that's the story. And now when I started looking into this gold thing myself, and here's what I came up with. So when you start analyzing the text, you discover that there was an encampment in a place called South Africa at Adam's Calendar. Okay. Now at Adam's Calendar, there's actually the very first gold mines discovered. They're dating them back to about 200,000 years ago. And that's incredible because there's a building there that looks like a worn down structure. Now in the tablets, it talks about the fact that the Ijiji, who were the working class Anunnaki beings who were cleaning out the Euphrates and Tigris River so they can create irrigation and create a bustling civilization. Also, they were doing the actual construction themselves. No people needed, just them working. They were like the construction workers, and Anu and Enki and Enlil, these leader gods, were like, the foremen, the master architects and so forth, right? The boss. So these people were working, but they weren't supposed to be enslaved. They were volunteers. They got tired of doing the work, according to them, for about 250,000 years of labor on Earth, and also, according to them, on Mars. This is in the text. They call it Lamu. And so they decided to go to war against Enki, Enlil, and Anu, because their demands had not been met. So they went to meet them in the Epic of Atrahasis. They go to Adam's Calendar. They go to that same structure that was discovered where that gold mine is located. I was like, holy crap, there is some link here to gold. Specifically, exactly, I don't know. But I know if you're an advanced civilization, you need gold. And the people that you have working it for you probably think, it's to adorn or to adorn yourself or in recognition of the gods. So they'll wear it and they'll utilize it, but not for technology. But what's crazy is they go to war, they get ready to go to battle, and then Enki says, I have an idea that will stop this war. There's an existing being on this planet, existing, not something that doesn't exist, existing. We can add our essence to it with a slain god. So they're talking about taking the DNA or genetics from one of themselves and mixing it with the DNA of the hominid that was here. It's not specified whether it was, an ape man or anything, but they don't specify in the tablets, but to create a worker being. And they began to do this genetic modification, probably disconnecting some of our DNA, making genetic modifications to us to get us to take orders from them. They inserted something called a worship gene, which was just discovered recently, that human beings have a gene inside of them that can be turned on and turned off. It can be turned off in a laboratory setting. It can also be turned off with a magnetic field around your head. And when it's off, you don't want to worship anything outside of yourself. You look inside. And when it's on, you look to get something from the outside. So this is incredible. They made us worship people.
Gene
yes.
inside of us to make us worship them. Wow, how genius.
It's incredible because then you're not a slave anymore. You're doing this for the honor of the gods.
And for people who think all this talk is really crazy, I want to put into perspective that we talked about this the other day, that during which war was it where the Soviet Union was experimenting? It was scientists in the Soviet Union, correct? They're experimenting with creating a chimpanzee human being hybrid that they would probably send to war.
Yeah.
So instead of having regular people, we would make this monster, this freak, ape man, and send him to war and have him crush the enemies.
Yeah.
It's like it's just how crazy is that? They knew how strong chimps are. I got an idea. Let's turn a chimp human, and that way, if he dies, who gives a fuck?
Right.
We made him. Get him to go to work for us.
Yeah.
And now if you're a supremely enlightened being, wouldn't you think of human beings with all of our folly and all of our chaos and all of our war and bullshit and the internet and disinformation and misinformation? Wouldn't you think of us kind of the same way we would think about that chimp hybrid thing?
Yeah.